तमाम सामीन और नाज़रीन को हमारी तरफ से अस्सलाम वालेकुम। मेरा नाम सुहेब है और बेखुदी की तरफ से आपको खुशामदीद। आज मैं बहुत ज़्यादा खुश हूँ कि आप फराह जी हमारे पास हैं यहाँ पे, और बेहद इसरार के बाद और थोड़ी सी मुश्किल से हम आपको यहाँ पे दावत दे सकें। एंड आई एम रियली एक्साइटेड दैट यू आर हियर एंड थैंक यू सो मच फॉर कमिंग।
I won't say it's a pleasure. I feel incredibly in the spot. But if someone asked me what's the true reason, is your khulus and Mahbub. I think sincerity and intentions could compel anyone. And I'm honestly here because I see the clarity in your intentions. And I'm honored, incredibly conscious, but very honored.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So I know you as, obviously a photographer, someone who is in my university, and someone who has been a very inspiring personality for myself and also for a lot of the other students who I have also been teaching separately in the liberal arts, and they would always often tell me about you. And I really think that we should start our conversation with some kind of background. अगर आप अपना थोड़ा सा a sketch of your story, what are you from Karachi? What is your background, and you can just start off like that.
Because I've done this for such a long time, you'll find ridiculous amount of stuff on the internet where you'll find photography, this, that, and the other. I really don't like talking about myself, but to keep it brief, as a young person, I was very impatient. I thought I'd become an artist. That didn't work out for me. I realized that taking or making a painting just takes long. Bumped into photography, and because of that, I got to travel a lot. And I think it's the traveling and being grateful for the capacity to be able to travel made me regular with my prayers. And when that happened, I started asking a lot of questions, because I think one of the reasons you'll see philosophers, or for that matter, anyone who's able to write or read, etc., they'll always travel, and traveling gives you an opportunity to look at people's lives, how they live. You do comparisons. You're taken in with the simplicity or the complexities of the cities and how they exist. And so I think traveling has contributed to the questions that seemed endless at times. There was no beginning and end. And I think that I was lost in the sense that my questions were simply regarding Allah Ta'ala ke, what else is there? Am I just supposed to pray and that's supposed to be good enough? So all these layered questions, and then looking for someone to teach me, brought me to the doorstep of my teacher. I met someone during a fashion shoot or something, and she introduced me to someone she would go to see. I walked into the presence of my ustad in 1995. It was the summer of 1995. I remember I'd either just turned 29 or 30, and like I said, millions of questions. And when I met her, I felt that someone had just saved me from the confusion or the complexities of what life is. And all the questions I could have ever asked ceased to exist, because everything made sense. It didn't before that. And I think that's where I credit my teacher for saving me. And that's it.
That's beautiful. So I have been teaching Tajdeed for a while, और जब मैं अपने स्टूडेंट्स को पढ़ाता हूँ आई शेयर वेरियस पॉइंट्स ऑफ व्यू, और उसके अंदर हमें ये पता है कि हमारे माशरे में और जनरली ब्रॉडली देयर इज़ अ पॉजिटिव एसोसिएशन that people have with the mystical branch of Islam, and then there is a negative association that people have. And it's very interesting that both of these interpretations exist. But मैं बिल्कुल अगर हम एक लेमैन के लिए पूछें या एक बड़े सिंपल अंदाज में पूछें how would you explain or how do you understand what Sufism is?
Well, first, I think the West has contributed to making Sufism sound like a separate religion, which is like really silly because all or most किताब वाले जो मज़हब हैं जो अहले किताब हैं उन सब में branches हैं where there's mysticism and philosophies and spirituality. It's not just Islam that has a spiritual branch to it. And it is not separate from your religion. It is when you want to understand the layered meanings and things. If it's easier said than done that I like to live my life like the Holy Prophet or the Sahabas, etc. There's just so much that they said and did, which was not about making you fearful of God. It was all this love that surrounded them and was a part of their lives. They did it effortlessly. And I don't think it was just fear, which is something very prominent in our societies about
Yeah.
a reprimanding of mistakes you made and hence you will be taken to task. I keep thinking of Rabb as Rahim and Kareem and the love which is infinite, it can begin and has no end. How do you even begin to understand love like that? So it's Sufism is not something that is separate. It is just you trying to practice Islam in a deeper way, more deeper than appearances. I don't have to look religious or it's not about my appearance. It's about how I have treated my batin and how do I look at people. Do I judge? Don't I judge? Do I refrain from lashing out or taking revenge? I remember when I went for Hajj, I thought, oh, बहुत मज़ा आएगा बैठ के इबादत करेंगे खामोशी से कहीं बैठेंगे वहाँ पे इंसानियत का दरिया था जो बहता था इतने सारे लोग थे कि there was no way you could find a quiet corner to sit and do ibadat. And I realized that Hajj was all about behaving yourself and treating people with respect, irrelevant of how they treated you.
Yeah.
And you had to control all those emotions that ran through you because it's very natural for us to lash out. It seems like the survival of the fittest वाली जंग चल रही होती है एक दूसरे की कुट लगा रहे होते हैं जो कि आज हमारे माशरे में बहुत सिंपल सा है बहुत रेयर होगा कि आप गाड़ी चला रहे हो कोई रास्ता आपको दे दे बट वन थिंग आई से अबाउट माई लवली सिटी इज़ दैट लोग रुक के हेल्प ज़रूर कर देते हैं which is something I haven't seen a lot of except in Pakistan. Especially when they see a lady, which is really sweet. But I honestly think it's because um, the spiritual side of Islam, I don't like labeling it like that because I don't even think this word existed. There was spirituality or Sufism, like you say, existed way before the word actually came. It's always been there.
That's true. I'm also interested in आपने जैसे अभी कहा ना पर it's how you treat your batin. And I know that in Sufism there is a lot of emphasis on the life of the heart. How do we feel? And are there any, how do you reflect on this, the emphasis on the heart?
I love what Hazrat Abdul Qadir Jalani says. He says the heart is a sea of light, and I love the way he explains how it's a mirror and you need to polish it because आप उसको जितना साफ रखेंगे और जितनी उस पर मेहनत करेंगे उतना आप अल्लाह ताला का रिफ्लेक्शन उसमें कैप्चर करेंगे because it's like आपने अगर किसी चीज़ को देखना है even if it's yourself if you look at a mirror and if it's not clean you're not going to be able to see much. So it's about working on it and understand it's a endless process. It's something that begins and there is no end to the clarity you can have, but it has a lot of practices. You don't just read about good things to do. You implement them into your life, and they're not never easy. Nothing's ever easy. I remember once जोश में आके I'd asked my teacher कि मुझे मुशाहिदा करना है. She said, नहीं, don't do that. Just keep it simple. I insisted क्योंकि किसी किताब में पढ़ लिया था उन्होंने नहीं बताएं क्या होता है तो उसने कहा अच्छा ठीक है ऐसे करो कि अगले दिन के लिए या कुछ दिनों के लिए मैं का वर्ड नहीं इस्तेमाल करना मैंने कहा ठीक है that sounded so simple. I didn't last 15 minutes. I was so embarrassed. And I thought, well, that's so easy. I was like, so that's work. That's
That's so interesting. That is very interesting. But मुझे थोड़ी और भी दिलचस्पी है ये सीखने में कि what kind of practices आप अभी कहीं you have to
well, होता ये है कि एक तो पर्दा सिर्फ इसलिए डाला जाता है, it's not because someone's trying to be secretive, it's because each murid is given separate things to practice, because a sheikh will look at your stage. They're not going to lump you with something that will be heavy. They want to implement it so that it's something you do naturally for the rest of your life. So I wouldn't. The only reason I wouldn't divulge is because maybe someone's obviously your thing is going to go out there, so you don't want to make someone feel good or bad about themselves. So it is like a medicine that a doctor prescribes and says it's just for you. He's checked you out. He's seen what your tolerance is, your capacity is, etc., and what your requirement is. Because a spiritual sheikh or someone who knows you and understands you and you spend time with them, they are gifted by Allah Ta'ala to see through you, and they understand where you lack, what you need work on, and hence the practice to help you gain a better version of yourself. Because we're just always working at a better version. We're all different. We have all separate requirements. We're all tested differently. There's just such a lot that's out there. There's, again, a very complex existence as a human being. There's a lot of work that needs to be done.
um, I'm intrigued to think about you said spiritual sheikh and a guru or someone who is able to teach you all of these things. How do we understand their station and उनके उनके उनको समझने के क्या आदाब हैं उनके साथ किस तरीके से हमें how should people think of that
I think
and also one more question is how does one find a sheikh?
that's very interesting. I think it's really funny because when I found my sheikh, I sort of asked her the same question. This is something that happened about more than 25 years ago or 30 years ago. My God, really long time ago. And उन्होंने मुझे कहा था कि बेटा बहुत आसान है. I'll tell you three things that will help you. And I know that I wasn't asking because I wanted to move camp. I was asking because I wondered how anyone was because we all have different steps. We're all going in the same direction. Everyone's going to end up with God, but we all have different paths. And I think you're guided to that path. I really don't have any specific way to take, but she explained it really well. She said that when you start looking, what you want to be careful of is what I can tell you. And I said, okay, please explain. She said, there are three things. सबसे पहले ये कि जब आप ऐसे शख्स की मौजूदगी में होंगे, you will feel that they practice what they preach. They are सख्त सुन्नत के पाबंद होते हैं, and that's it. You need to remember that they're not going to make you do things, etc., and then do things differently themselves. They're very much living example of what they're trying to teach you. The next thing is that when you sit in their company, you'll feel lighter. The presence and the feeling of being able to forget your chores and household is the company itself is very pleasurable in the sense that it's not gossip, it's not politics, it's simply about existence of a human being. And they'll always talk about their share. I've yet to hear any buzurg talk about me, I. ये तो होता ही नहीं है. They always talk about हमने उनसे ये सीखा और हमने उनसे वो सीखा. And when I told you that they don't say मैं, I'm not even kidding. I don't even remember the last or ever hearing my sheikh say that. And then she said, there is no money involved. If there is any money, get the hell out of there. And I took that to, I burnt it into my memory because before I had met her, I had met a lot of people who like to think that they are that. And it's so incredible that all the things she had said, I've met two, three people just exactly, filling one. And I thought to myself, Ya Khuda, thank you for saving me because it's difficult as time progresses. The special people of my beautiful Rabb do tend to have less और quantity उनकी कम हो जाती है छुपे हुए होते हैं because that's what I love about बुजुर्ग is that they don't stick out like a sore thumb. They're very much blended into the background.
Yeah.
They're not seeking importance, presence, etc. And I think that's not easy because of the way life is right now. Social media, this, that, वगैरह. It's me, I, and Allah जाने क्या क्या. I mean, it's just insane. It's exact opposite of what you're supposed to do to help yourself grow.
I think the immediate question that comes to my mind after this brief discussion is that you've been on this path since a while now. It's been quite a few years. If you could just reflect on the significance that this has had in your personal life, in your overall well-being, in your sense of purpose in life, कि जिंदगी में direction कैसी मिली, relationships कैसी, with all this input that you're getting. Uh,
I think it's a very gradual progression. I think it makes me less anxious, um, and also one of the things that I probably love the most, which is not easy every time, but accepting Allah Ta'ala's decree. You know how we have a life where lists बनती हैं and you get irritated कि एक चीज़ नहीं हुई list में वगैरह. If we could just accept the fact that we can make plans and etc., but you have to submit to his plans, which are bigger and better and beautiful. And when something doesn't work out, doesn't necessarily mean कि आप नाकाम हो गए. It just means कि there's another day when something better will come if you wait. So it teaches you to wait and to trust God. We're not just supposed to have faith in Allah Ta'ala, we have to trust Him. And I think it teaches me to trust Him more than I could have done on my own.
I think one thing that a lot of people now associate with Sufism is that it has a kind of a global reach. And this might also be true because, for example, मौलाना रूमी की जो मतनबी है वो ट्रांसलेट हुई, बाहर दुनिया में पढ़ी गई, उसको अप्रिशिएट किया गया, और फिर काफ़ी सारे लोगों ने उसके अंदर जो आइडियाज़ थे उन्होंने इंटरसेक्शंस ढूंढे विद अदर रिलीजियस ट्रेडिशन एंड अदर स्पिरिचुअल ट्रेडिशंस एज वेल. तो क्या आपको भी लगता है कि ये जो सूफिया कराम की जब हम किताबें पढ़ते हैं और उनकी बहुत सारी चीज़ें पढ़ते हैं तो हमें ये नज़र आता है कि सूफीज़म या तसव्वुफ जो है वो बाकी मज़ाहिब के साथ भी हमें कनेक्ट करता है. एक काइंड ऑफ it has a reach beyond just the Muslims who are born and raised.
What I used to love in one of or most Sufi stories is that even today, but back then, जब खानकाज होती थी and people would come there for food or guidance, if they were troubled, they look for someone कि दुआ कर दें. There was never a roke talk of someone who was from another faith. In fact, अगर आप आज भी अजमेर शरीफ जाएंगे, the amount of regard the Christians, the Hindus, and for that matter, multiple communities फूलों का हार पेश करते हैं, blessings सीख करते हैं. And अजमेर शरीफ में इतना रश होता है कि you can't assume that everyone's a practicing Muslim. They are different faiths. And I think that comes from a simple fact that एक बुजुर्ग अगर कह रहा है कि उसको अल्लाह का वली है और वो से अल्लाह ताला से इश्क है, तो फिर अल्लाह ताला की बनाई हुई सारी मखलूक से और क्रिएशन से मोहब्बत होनी ज़रूरी है. आप ये नहीं कह सकते कि I don't like you, I like this and that. You can't pick and choose. You have to respect and love his entire creation, and there shouldn't be a separation there. So again, you will always see Buzurg practice what they preach. They will be kind and generous to anyone who's troubled because they help them because they love their Creator and to please their Lord. They respect all life in all forms. And that means they were probably the first environmentalists or the first people who weren't racist and things. All of these things, living, breathing people who practiced things that now people are becoming aware of and um, preach it or promote it, etc.
Yeah, I also think that it's this great power that the Sufi tradition has. I was in Prague once and I met a girl. She was from India, and I think her mom was Hindu and her father was Christian. और वो निज़ामुद्दीन औलिया के मज़ार पे जाना और वहाँ पे एक पूरा to be a part of that entire festival. She was just narrating that, and I thought it was so interesting, and I was very inspired. And she said कि वहाँ हमारे लिए तो ये ज़ाहिर है हम सूफिया कराम को बहुत ज़्यादा मानते हैं और हम रिस्पेक्ट करते हैं. और जब हम कबीर की पोइट्री पढ़ते हैं, जिस 15th century poet, वो राम, in his poetry we hear the name Ram, and I think that at least in my observation there is also uh, this drawing beyond just the vocabulary of what we have in Islam, but this interconnectedness in the entire human race and beyond cultures.
It's true. When Kabir passed away, I remember झगड़े शुरू हो गए थे. The Hindus wanted to bury him the way they wanted to bury, and the Muslim community said हम अपने तरीके से करेंगे. And I don't know how they resolved it, but I still remember that बहुत अरसे तक ये बहस चली थी कि वो हमारे हैं और ये हमारे हैं. And I thought that actually doesn't say much about people. It says a lot about the person who practiced and promoted love of Allah Ta'ala and a creator. I mean, घूम फिर के तो बात यही आती ना कि चाहे जितनी बहस कर लो, बनाने वाला तो है ना कोई. And it doesn't matter what faith you're from. You do agree that someone did put you here. You didn't create yourself. You obviously come from someplace. Yeah.
I think this it opens up the question, at least in my mind, here, what can we do today to perhaps increase the sense of unity and increase the sense of compassion that we get from Sufi metaphysics and way of being.
I think having good company would be a great start, but what you are doing is quite the right place. I think meditation teaches you to look inwards, and it teaches you to sort of sort out the stuff that you can sort out rather than pointing fingers. It's a very inward kind of a thing where if you can make yourself better, then can you imagine if everyone did that and what would happen to mankind and humanity? The work begins with you. It doesn't have to be you reaching out and fixing the world. I think if you can be meditative, and if you can focus on yourself and seek the divine within, which is what meditation is all about, it can benefit you multiple folds. There's again meditation maybe. अब आई रिमेम्बर बुज़ुर्गों के बारे में जो हमने पढ़ा हुआ है कि वो इतनी मरतबे पे पहुंच जाते थे, ये इतने नफीस तरीके से पहुंच जाते थे कि they could hold their breath for endless amounts of time. And that kind of meditation, I mean, I've read it in books and I've heard it. I remember my sheikh used to talk about a yogi who could fly from one mountain to the other. I've never doubted him because with again body पे वो इतना काम कर जाते थे. There was a limit to the stations they could reach, but the body itself could be worked on to so much degrees. So, you might see in movies a Hindu yogi on a bed of thorns and this, that, the other. Some of them are fake, but a lot of them can actually pull it off. And that is, again, a very meditative way to be able to control what happens to your body when it's in a meditative way. And they could concentrate and do things that you and I have not even scratched the surface. But this is all from working on yourself. The breath is a very powerful thing, and to work on it is something that can take your entire life, and you still won't have reached the possibilities that they are.
One of the things that's also been on my mind is that because I've been teaching and I've been teaching philosophy and Tajdeed and a few other related subjects, is that a lot of a lot of the young people who are growing up, they have an association with their religion when they grow up. But as they grow up and they come to university, they are exposed to a lot of the ideas from outside our borders. और वो फिर आहिस्ता आहिस्ता ना वो उसको समझने की कोशिश करते हैं कि अपने अपने दीन को भी और बाहर से जो आइडियाज आ रहे हैं उनको भी, और एक मुख्तलिफ अंदाज से उसको मुख्तलिफ लोग मुख्तलिफ तरीके से उन चीज़ों को समझते हैं. बट एक जो चीज़ मुझे मेरा जो ऑब्जर्वेशन है वो ये है कि वो समटाइम्स इट्स ब्रीडिंग कन्फ्यूजन. ऐसे नज़र आता है कि जैसे some people are they have questions, but then those questions they feel they cannot be answered. Sometimes जैसे आपने अभी एक शुरू में एक बात की थी कि ट्रेडिशनली जब हम अपने कल्चर में बड़े होते हैं तो अक्सर खौफ सिखाया जाता है कि भाई ये अल्लाह ताला से डरना है एंड सो ऑन सो फोर्थ, बट एंड व्हेन दे ग्रो अप दे स्टार्ट टू थिंक कि भाई मतलब क्यों डरना है। माय क्वेश्चन इज कि अगर एक ऐसा एनवायरनमेंट है जहाँ पे हमारे पास अपनी जो स्पिरिचुअल ट्रेडिशन है उससे एक स्ट्रॉन्ग कनेक्शन नहीं पैदा हो पाता। ज़ाहिर है हम जब बड़े होते हैं हमने कोई रूमी की कहानियाँ नहीं सुनी, हमने कोई शेख सादी की जो उन्होंने बच्चों के लिए कहानियाँ लिखी थी वो हमने नहीं पढ़ी। हम बड़े होते हैं देन देयर इज अ लॉट ऑफ अदर आइडियाज दैट वी आर आल्सो एक्सपोज्ड। आज के ज़माने में हाउ डू यू थिंक पीपल कैन फाइंड ग्राउंडिंग in who they are, in their tradition, in their culture, while at the same time they're thinking about, positively about the knowledge that they can get from around the world.
I think it's an interesting world we live in right now because one of the many things that you'll find on the internet is that there is a talk about mindfulness, this, that, and the other. It's fascinating for me as a student is that this is Far Eastern philosophies. It's not just Islamic. I mean, you'd have meditation in all different religions, etc. It's something that was there. So, taking a cue from the fact that they are interested and curious on something like that, what you are doing right now is very relevant to the age we live in because it's not specific to a religion and it is something that is very contemporary considering that there's a revival of some kind. I think it's interesting how sometimes history can repeat itself. I'm sure हर सदी में एक ऐसा दौर या ऐसी इस मुआशरे में ऐसे ग्रुप्स होते हैं जो कि कहते हैं कि ओके देयर समथिंग दैट्स नॉट राइट एंड व्हाट कैन आई डू टू मेक इट बेटर एंड ये हर दौर में इस किस्म के ग्रुप्स आते हैं जहाँ पे they then start attraction because what they preach works or helps and it is not judging humanity and people. um, Honestly, if someone genuinely is interested, may God guide them and they will find it. But find is tarah ki you have I remember long ago I spoke to you and how you were keen on teaching young children meditation and you were keen on having or giving opportunities. So just like there are Sufi halkas all over the world. I mean, I remember when I first found out about Naqshbandi Silsila being strong in Germany, I was like, really? And then America, and there were khankas all over, and they were very receptive. Again, the whole point is that you do your background check like you would anywhere. I mean, अगर आप पढ़ाई फिलॉसफी पढ़ने जा रहे हैं, लिटरेचर पढ़ने जा रहे हैं, आप चेक नहीं करते कि किस यूनिवर्सिटी जा रहे हैं, उसकी कितनी अहमियत है, वो कितना तालिब इल्म पास होके निकले तो क्या बने क्या नहीं हो. ऑल ऑफ अस ऑलवेज चेक व्हेन वी आर ट्राइंग टू एजुकेट आवरसेल्व्स. व्हाई कांट यू डू द सेम फॉर रिलीजन? And once you do that, hopefully God will guide you because there's no set way. There are just so many ways to reach Allah Ta'ala. There's not a path. There are infinite paths. We are all going in the one direction. And he has his incredible he has his incredible generous ways of guiding mankind. So I wouldn't worry about that. I would just do like you said the other day. I'll do my bit and then you do your bit and then may God give you the sawab of this generosity that you do, but may you also bring this into multiple lives where it all begins with the first step and we are okay. It'll work out.
One of the reasons why I was interested in doing this kind of podcast was so that it could answer some questions for a lot of the people who are in and around our city, our country. Do you think that there is some word of advice that you could give to people who are watching or listening with regards to how can they orient themselves in their life? How can they find a deeper connection with God? What can they do to, continue to have the faith or find the stability in their lives?
I think back in the day, storytelling or dastan goi was one way of. I mean, I used to think that out of they would get people to listen to stories and things. reading people about people's lives and autobiographies and things. Hopefully, that creates some kind of a curiosity. But read the lives of people who have had a successful life, and you'll be amazed, from people from Einstein to all these other deeper philosophers, etc. आप हैरान हो जाए कि उनकी practices क्या थी, उनकी beliefs क्या थी, right down to the guy who probably invented the atom bomb and things like that. They were sorted it out. They felt regret, they felt pain, they felt why did they, and then they try to rectify things, etc. Like right now, AI is a big deal. The fact that this man decides to not only retire from Google and say, okay, I think you guys are headed down the wrong path. It's fantastic for someone at that stage in his life with such a lot of success, get up and say, okay, no, this is wrong. I'm not happy about what I've done. And I think there is reflection to be sought, and you'll find it in multiple ways. And all of this is a message. And if you have the common sense, you'll read through, you'll understand technology and advancement and all these things that mankind glorifies himself with is not a successful life. Because if you are doing well in life and there's a whole lot of money, are you at peace with yourself? Is that how you define success? Or is it being able to go in a heavy crowd of people and center yourself, and be alone and to be able to center yourself? Can you do that? Is it possible? Do you understand what घबराहट is? जिस तरह हम अपने 2 दिन 3 दिन खाना नहीं खाएंगे तो आपको भूख लगेगी, मगर आपने अपनी रूह की ग़ज़ा का तो ख्याल नहीं किया। आपकी रूह की क्या ग़ज़ा है? आपने अगर उसको स्टारवेशन पे रखा है तो दिल तो घबराएगा ना फिर। और अगर घबरा रहा है तो उसका फिज़िकल खाने से तो कोई ताल्लुक़ नहीं है, उसका रूहानी खाने से बड़ा ताल्लुक़ है। तो अगर आप नहीं फ़ीड करेंगे तो फिर आप परेशान ही होंगे, उसके अलावा और तो कुछ समझ में नहीं आता कि क्या होने वाला है। So there are ways. You read up on lives, you see people, and if you're curious, it helps. And honestly, it's not like just Islamic scholars and things. People who you respect and look up to have had incredible lives that they've lived. And you can literally pick up a lesson from एक चीज़ अगर कोई अपना ले, मसलन खामोश रहना, कोशिश करो, नहीं रहा जाता। I think the reason my class is noisy sometimes is because they are anxious. There's a lot of anxiety in the age we live in. Why is there anxiety?
I guess that's all.
Yeah, we're done. I can go home.
No,
No, what do
I
you?
mean, of course you can go. I don't have any more questions this second.
देखो सारे सवालों के जवाब दे दिए. Wow.
Thank you so much. Thank
You're
you so much
welcome.
for being here and having this conversation.